You're flat on your face in the mud of a half-frozen field somewhere on the front lines of the Saar. Your glasses are gone. Shattered. The frame sheared clean through by a piece of shrapnel that should have killed you. Without them, the world is a smear. The tree line ahead is a gray blur. The men around you are shapes. And the one thing your ears can tell you for certain is the screaming. A man named Prince of Valley is dying 20 yards away, and it's going to take him 3 hours to do it. And nobody can get to him. You're 17 years old when you signed your enlistment papers. A year ago, you were a college freshman flunking physics. Now you're folded into a shell hole, cheek against cold mud, counting the seconds between explosions. And you've learned the single most important lesson of your war. Dig deep, stay low, and never ever go anywhere alone. What's your next move? Do you crawl toward the screaming? Do you stay buried in your hole and wait for the dark? When the German tanks are sitting so close you could throw a rock at them, and they'll pivot and kill you the instant you move. What would you do? This isn't a movie. This isn't fiction. This was the reality for Melvin Silverman, a nearsighted Jewish kid from Perth Amboy, New Jersey, and the men of Company F, 347th Infantry Regiment, 87th Infantry Division, in the snow and the woods and the burning towns of the European War. Welcome to POV World War II. Today we're going to live this war through the eyes of one American infantryman, from a shoe store on Smith Street to the front line outside Metz, from a frozen hill above the Siegfried Line to the gates of a prison camp. You'll see what he saw. You'll feel the cold work in past every layer of wool until it's living in your joints. You'll learn what it costs to survive when the men you trained with are vanishing one by one, until a company of 170 is down to 7. What does it mean to be a kid who's been told his whole life to be kind, to be gentle, to never hurt anybody, and then to be handed a rifle and ordered into a place where the man across the field is trying to kill you? How do you build a wall of protection inside your own head just to keep going? Strap in. This is Melvin's story. Today, it's yours. It's the 1930s, and you're growing up in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. It's not a small town, 45,000 people, but it might as well be a country of its own, divided down the middle by lines you couldn't see but never dared cross. About a quarter of the town is Jewish. The rest is largely Central European Catholic, and the two do not mix. Step outside your own world, and you get beaten up. You learn early to be a runner. Easter is the worst time of year. The words from the Christian pulpit echo the old accusation that the Jews killed Christ, and then the long, dangerous walk home from school, when looking at the wrong boy the wrong way earns you a promise. I'll get you after school. You're not a large kid. When you start high school, you're a little over 5 feet tall. So you learn to run, and you learn to disappear into the background, and you learn the geography of every safe route home. But the cocoon has another side, a warmer one. Your parents run a shoe store, the Boston Shoe Company, and everyone in Perth Amboy knows who you are. If you get lost, you walk up to any cop and tell him your name, and he takes you home. Your father Willie came over from the old country at 12 years old, a tinsmith's apprentice who once talked his way past a long line at a doctor's door by buying a newspaper and announcing a delivery. During the Depression, he quietly kept half the town alive, paying young men a day's wages to sit in the back of the store and study. Men who would become doctors and lawyers and bankers, men who would remember. You wear glasses. Your mother never quite believes you need them. Only old people wear glasses, she says, but you do. Without them, the blackboard is a fog, and the world dissolves. Remember that. Hold on to that one fact, because it's going to follow you into the war. And one day, it's going to save your life. By the time you reach high school, you already understand what's happening across the ocean. You know more German then than you ever will again. And when you listen to the speeches crackling out of the radio, cold understanding settles in your stomach. This is not a good thing, you think. This is not going to end well. When your father hears you want to study engineering, he tells you flatly, you'll never get a job. There are quotas. Jews don't get hired as engineers. But Rutgers has no entrance exam. You just need good grades. So you apply, and they take you. And in the summer of 1943, you arrive on campus. You last about 6 weeks. You're flunking. In high school, you never had to study because you were so bright. At Rutgers, everyone is bright. You stare at a physics book and think, this is not good. And so when the Army calls, because you've already signed enlistment papers for the Army Specialized Training Reserve Program, it feels strangely like a rescue. Why the Army and not the Navy or the Air Force? Because you'd drown in the Navy. And in the Air Force, you're stuck up in the air somewhere. And besides, they'd never take a nearsighted kid for a pilot anyway. You've been around the water your whole life on the Raritan River, and you knew what it was to go under and not be able to find air. It hurts when you drown. So the infantry it is. You're 17 years old. What would you be thinking, signing your name to a piece of paper that hands your life over to the United States Army? At 17, with no real idea of what's coming, you don't expect anything good from it. And the Army, as you'll soon learn, will meet your expectations exactly. For a long while, the Army doesn't feel like war at all. It feels like camp. You report first to Auburn, New York, an arm of Syracuse University. 300 kids, all 17, taking business administration classes. After summer camps at Camp Cedar Lake in the Watchung Mountains, this is familiar ground. You clean the bunks, wash the johns, make your beds. They give you clothes, they feed you, and at the end of the month, they actually hand you money for the privilege. You think, this is a nice camp. The food is the revelation. At home, you ate steak and lamb chops and chicken, and a hot dog on the weekend was a treat because you genuinely believed hot dogs were expensive. The Army teaches you it's the other way around. On Sunday mornings, they put out cold cuts, and pancakes, things you almost never had at home. You decide with total sincerity that Army food is wonderful. You'll hold this opinion through some of the worst fighting of the war. From Auburn, they ship you to Fort Benning, the infantry school. 13 weeks. It's a tougher camp, but it's still a camp. Climbing ropes, falling down, firing rifles and machine guns, which is fun, and throwing grenades, which are the only thing nobody plays games with. You don't like being shouted at. Go, go, go. So you tell yourself the men shouting must have had immature childhoods, and you play the game. One moment from Benning sticks. They gather you all together and bring out a combat veteran to talk. He tells you the reason they're shouting at you, the reason you have to suffer through all of it, and that they're concerned about whether you'll survive. And you think, that makes sense. Then you look at the non-coms in front of you and you think, well, that may have been the intent, but these particular men are not the sharpest. Many of them can barely speak English plainly. When one tells you, we got to carry you up the field, it takes you a while to work out that he means you've been ordered to advance up the field. Then the whole outfit moves to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to the 87th Division. And here, the truth of your situation comes into focus. Picture an entire division of 17 and 18-year-olds who don't want to be there. The NCOs and officers are ancient by comparison, men in their mid-20s, and you are, collectively, a disaster. It isn't disobedience. You follow the rules exactly. That's the problem. The officer says, hit the obstacle course, the black one, and points to the pink one beside it as the one for wimps. So the whole company goes for the wimps, because he told you to choose. They run you through a night infiltration course, machine guns firing overhead. And after 45 minutes, nobody's come out the far end. They turn on the lights and find you all asleep on your bellies in the dirt. They show you training films in the dark. And within 30 seconds, you hear the thud of bodies hitting the floor as exhausted boys topple out of their chairs. There is one NCO who understands. Sergeant McCarter from Alabama. He starts out screaming like the rest, but within a month, his voice drops. He stops giving orders. Instead, he says, "I think I might need some help carrying out the garbage cans." And 4 or 5 boys leap up to help. Did anybody want to come out and police up the area? And everybody goes. He is one of the few who grasps that the children he's been handed don't respond to threats. They respond to being asked. Remember McCarter, he's gonna matter. What finally turns the outfit around is a captain who arrives from New York, an expert with the M1, a man who speaks English the way you do. He looks at a company that can't pass its qualification tests, a division the Army desperately needs overseas, and he finds a lever. The Expert Infantryman badge. Pass it, he posts, and you make PFC. A few extra dollars a month, a bump in rank. Suddenly, there's a reason to try. You have to qualify on several weapons, do a 25-mile hike in 8 hours with a full field pack, a forced march of 9 miles in 2 hours, keep your weapon spotless. Out of about 180 screw-ups in Company F, something like 175 earn the badge. You yourself become an expert with the carbine and a sharpshooter with the M1. You, who couldn't even find the target before. Hold on to that captain too. He stays with you all the way to the Rhine. The orders come about 3 days before you ship out. Camp Kilmer, then the docks, and the entire division loading onto the Queen Elizabeth. The whole division on one ship. So many men that if a U-boat had found you, it would have bagged a division and more. But what you remember most is the Red Cross handing out milk as you board. You think, these people are smart. They recognize they're dealing with children. You don't offer children coffee. The crossing is rough. You sleep 4 men stacked in a vertical row. No officers down there with you. Second berth from the bottom of a stinking hold that smells of vomit by the second day out. They tell you the ship is too fast for the U-boats, but every half hour somebody swears he's seen a periscope. And you'd love to go up and look, except the upper decks are for officers only. You are deathly seasick the entire way. By the time the ship reaches Greenock, Scotland, half the division is green. A month or so near Manchester, meat pies and dances, a good time on rationed money. And then the trains to Southampton, the boat to Le Havre, and the war stops being a camp. It's pouring rain when you get off. You hike 22 miles, pitch your 2-man tents in a field that is nothing but standing water, and you stay wet, soaked through for a solid week. Then they load you into the boxcars the French call 40 and 8s, 40 men or 8 horses. The trains carry you toward the outskirts of Metz, and trucks take you the rest of the way, up to the front line, to relieve a division whose name you never learned and never need to know. Because your entire world is now one outfit of 170 men. As the cold comes down on you that first night, you have no idea that by the Battle of the Bulge, it'll be 20 men, and that by the 5th of May, it'll be 7. You go into combat the first time at night, in the Saar. And the truth is there's nothing to see. No enemy, just a trench, in the dark, in the cold. And a fear so total that years later you'll describe it plainly. You were scared out of your gourd. Then the sun comes up. You get up to move out, and you walk straight into roughly half a dozen tanks. An infantry company in the middle of 6 German tanks is not a good place to be. In the first hour, you lose something like 35 men, and that's where Sergeant McCarter is killed. The good one. The one who learned to ask instead of order. Gone in the mud of the Saar. You survive for one reason and one reason only. You fall into a mortar hole. Your pack bursts open as you go down. Everything spilling into the hole ahead of you. And you end up with your body sunk into the earth and only your legs sticking out. You don't move. You can't move. The tanks are close. And the instant something stirs, a turret swings and somebody dies. The Germans can't call artillery onto you because their own tanks are sitting right there among you. So you lie with your face in the dirt for 6 hours. Can you feel it? The cold of the ground soaking through your uniform? The exhaust reek of the idling engines? The way your own heartbeat sounds enormous when you're trying to make yourself smaller than a stone. 6 hours of that. When it finally gets dark enough that the tanks pull back, you stand up. And the first coherent thought in your head is absurd and human all at once. My God, who ate all those K-rations? You did. You ate them without knowing it, hours ago, hiding in a hole. But you don't even get the relief of standing in safety. As you rise, an explosion erupts 20 yards to your right, another 20 yards to your left. Mortars walking in. You start to get up, and the next thing you know, you're being carried. Graves registration has you. They think you're dead. A piece of shrapnel hit the rim of your glasses and sheared the frame clean through. It probably saved your life. The metal of those nearsighted lenses you've worn since you were 9. The glasses your mother never believed you needed. It opened a flesh wound across your scalp. And head wounds bleed. So lying face down in the mud, you look like a corpse. Someone checks, says, "This one's still alive," and they drop you back into the mud and move on. You sit up, no glasses. The world is a blur. Everyone is gone. So you stumble, blind, bleeding, back to the battalion aid station, where a medic slaps a bandage on it because it doesn't even need stitches and says, "Okay, you're okay." And then the bitterest small detail of the whole war. They don't write it down. No record. You'll write the Army 4 letters over the years, trying to get the Purple Heart you earned that day. And they'll never send it. They'll send you a Bronze Star instead. About 2 years before you sit down to tell this story. Why does that matter? Because the Purple Heart counted as points toward going home after VE Day. You didn't think it was important at the time. At 18 with shrapnel in your scalp. The paperwork is the last thing on your mind. This is the same stretch where a brand new replacement lieutenant nearly gets you court-martialed. You tell him you can't go out on patrol because without your glasses you can't see. "You can see me," he insists. "Yes," you tell him, "but only this far." He doesn't know what to do with that. So he lets it go. But 2 days later, he catches you reading a copy of Stars and Stripes. "You're a gold bricker," he screams, assuming you've faked your bad eyes. He threatens you with a court-martial, and as punishment, puts you on guard duty in the dead of night with a BAR. And you're out there, blind and terrified, which is a dangerous thing to be. When you hear a rustle, "Who's there?" No answer. You let off 6 rounds. And the lieutenant comes screaming out of the dark. It's me! "Okay," you say. "Come on in." "Why did you fire?" he demands. "Because I can't see you," you tell him. He storms off to the captain, accusing you of trying to kill him. The captain patiently explains that you genuinely can't see, that you always wore glasses. It sounds funny in the retelling. It wasn't funny then. You learn the next lesson here too, in the woods, where the Germans aim their artillery at the trees. A shell that hits the ground throws its shrapnel upward, in a pattern you can partly escape if you're low. But a shell that bursts in the treetops has nowhere to throw its deadly shards but down, into the hole you thought was keeping you safe. You go down as far as the frozen ground will let you. The men who stop short don't last. Did you get low enough? Approaching China, you'll say. When they tell you dig in, you don't argue. You disappear into the earth. You don't think you're immortal. The macho ones, the men who hate the Germans, who swear they're not afraid, who promise to go out and kill as many as they can, those men get killed. You watch it happen. First, they pull you back to Reims. Showers, actual showers, clean uniforms, 2 or 3 days of being almost human. Then they put you on trucks at night and drive for what feels like hours and hours. And finally someone says, "Okay, you're out here." And you're standing in the snow. You're supposed to pitch tents. Nobody does. The rumors are everywhere. Germans in white uniforms slipping through the dark, knifing men in their sleep. So you learn to sleep in your bag, with the zipper open, and your rifle in your arms. The first night is a killer, just from the cold. And then it gets worse, because now men are dying every single day. You're on the southern flank of the Bulge, closing in south of Bastogne, and you come to a village called Piron-Pré, a name you'll remember for the rest of your life, because you'll later read about it in a book and find your own war inside someone else's pages. You attack across an open field, and the fire pours over you. You lose a couple of men in the snow. Gone, just like that. There's a confusion of names in the chaos. Word gets passed back that a sergeant, Schiller, or something like it, has been killed. By the time the word reaches the rear, it's mutated. Silverman got killed. Meanwhile, you're very much alive, pinned flat in that field. When it finally lets up and the rest of the outfit comes pounding forward, one of the men looks down at you and says, "You're alive." "I think so," you tell him. "Boy," he says, "we were really pissed off." "Oh," you say, "that was nice." Underneath the deadpan is something genuinely moving. They thought you were dead, and they were furious about it. Furious enough to charge positions they should have stayed pinned down against. When that rumor went around, your friends came charging up out of cover, cleaning out machine gun nests they had no business attacking, because they thought you were gone, and it made them angry. You'll tell them later, "It's not worth it, guys. Stay down." This is the thing the officers never gave you and never could. You don't keep going for them. You keep going because Bernie Rooney is around, and Hai Bershad, and the others. And because if you run, there's a hole where you used to be, and the man next to you is less safe. You run out to drag wounded men back, not for a medal. The medal depends entirely on the mood of whatever officer happens to be watching. But because it's, in the coldest arithmetic, safer for you to have a friend alive beside you than a faceless replacement. A prejudiced viewpoint, you'll admit, but an honest one. Up on a hill outside Piron-Pré, you're held in what they generously call reserve, 600 yards back, while another company gets chewed up trying to take the town. There are panzers in Piron-Pré, and it's so brutally, killingly cold that in the middle of the night you crawl over to the captain's hole and ask if you can go back into the town behind you. About 100 yards back, a ruined building where some men have a fire going, just to get warm. "What for?" he asks. "I want to get warm. I'll be back in an hour." "What's he gonna do? Court-martial you?" "Okay," he says. "What's your move? Do you stay in your freezing hole on the line, or do you take the captain up on it and go warm your hands for an hour?" You go, and during that 1 hour, an artillery attack lands square on the position you just left. The outfit loses a dozen men. Among them is Delmer Johnson. You knew Delmer. And here's how war reaches across decades to find you. In 1965, you'll fly into Luxembourg with your wife and your kids, and you'll go to the American Military Cemetery, and you'll walk the rows. And there will be Delmer Johnson, a bad feeling, standing there. There he was. You knew Delmer. 1 hour. That's all that separated the two of you. When you get back from your hour of warmth, Graves registration is at work, picking up the bodies. And then you go on the attack and clean out Piran Prey. This is the memory that defines the Bulge for you. Not a map, not a grand strategy, but the simple grinding subtraction. A unit of 170 men ground down to almost nothing. You get replacements, yes, but they don't count. They come, they introduce themselves, you say hello, and they're somehow not there. The man is standing right in front of you, and he's not there. Because he isn't someone you know. Names you'd forget before nightfall. Even when they fire their weapons and do their jobs, you can't make them real. Because you never got the chance to. You keep squeezing the enemy at the Bulge. Eventually, one of the outfits links up with the British. You think, you're never sure. And then you turn and head into Germany, and you attack a city called Ormont. In the middle of the night, when you catch a German civilian wandering around, the captain calls you up. You speak German? Yes. So you ask the man which way Ormont lies. He gives you the runaround, again and again, until you threaten him a little. And finally, he agrees to take you to the outskirts of the town. And that is exactly where the artillery comes in. You hit the dirt, and here's the grim joke of the infantry. The one every veteran knows. After a while, you can hear a shell coming, and they say you get so good you can run 100 yards, dig a foxhole, climb to the bottom, and start in on Our Father Who Art before it lands. A shell slams into the ground 5 feet from you, and it's a dud. 5 feet, a dud. How many times can a man be that lucky? You started to lose count. You take Ormont, and you wreck the hell out of it. You tear down buildings, empty ones when there's nobody inside because you're angry. You carry the ghosts of men like MacArthur with you. It's not a good feeling, even at the time. You take very few prisoners. It is, you'll say later, the kind of thing you do as a kid that you would never do as an adult. Then you push on through a forest, and now you literally can't walk because the soles of your GI boots have worn smooth. And on frozen ground, a man with smooth boots doesn't walk. He slips and falls. You're falling constantly. In the dark, you pass a lump of snow, and the man behind you goes to investigate, and it turns out to be an 88, an artillery gun with a canvas cover over it, and 3 German soldiers hiding underneath. So you shoot them. You drop a grenade in the breech of the gun, and you move on. You're falling so often that the captain finally tells you to get back to the battalion aid station. Something's wrong with you. You're running a 103-degree fever. The outfit is going tank hunting that night, so one of the men borrows your BAR, and in the morning he's furious because the weapon wouldn't fire. There was a solid brick of ice straight down the barrel, frozen completely solid. That's how cold it is. That's the cold you've been living in. And then trying to find your way back, you get lost. Middle of the night, alone, in a combat zone. You wander, you can't find the outfit, and you come at last to the brow of a hill and think, this'll do. Nobody else is around. So, of course, you dig a hole. You dig and dig down deep. And you're heaving the last shovelful of dirt over the edge when you hear it. Wham! The tree behind you explodes. An 88 round hit it about 3 feet up. And because you'd already dug down deep, you were under it. 1 shot. That's all they fired. You drop to the bottom of your hole and stay there until dawn. When the light comes, you look down into the valley below, and there it is. The beginning of the Siegfried Line. Concrete dragon's teeth tank traps. You think, wow, how about that? And you see a steel door set into the hillside, and you watch a single GI run into it, and the door slams shut behind him. Well, you think, we must hold it. You wait until mid-morning. Nothing. No more artillery. Nice day. Sun shining. So you get up and walk down the hill, out in the open, to the door. You pound on it. Who's there? A hand reaches out, grabs you, and yanks you inside, and the door slams. A heartbeat later, the whole door shudders as an 88 round smashes into it. It turns out the Germans had been watching you the entire time, a lone figure strolling across open ground, hoping to land a shell on the steel door the instant your buddies opened it for you. Inside are several men from your own outfit. They recognize your voice. Close call. You've lost count of how many that makes. Through all of it, you still have no glasses. You won't get a new pair until you make it back to Reims. You fought across the Saar, through the Bulge, into Germany, half blind the entire way. Not every danger comes from the Germans. Once you very nearly shot General Patton. You're guarding an airfield at Limburg, dug into a hole that, because it's raining and a hole fills with water, has you sunk to your waist, better wet than dead. Every evening at dusk, a staff sergeant comes around with clean, dry socks, and you have to climb out, strip off your boots and your soaked socks, pull on the dry ones, lace back up, and climb back into the water. By the third day, you're muttering that the whole ritual is completely irrational. And then a column of jeeps comes tearing down the road beside you at 30 miles an hour. Fast, flinging mud all over everyone. So you stand up and fire about 6 rounds from your BAR into the air. The jeeps grind to a halt and back up. Out hops an older man with an ivory-handled pistol and stars on his helmet. "Who fired that?" "I did, sir." "What's wrong with you?" "We're in a hole. We're guarding something. Slow down. You're putting mud on everybody." He looks at you and says, "You're absolutely right, soldier." Climbs back in his jeep and drives off. A colonel from one of the rear jeeps hops out and asks what the general told you. "Who?" you say. You give him your name, figuring if there's a court-martial coming, at least it happens back behind the lines, out of the line of fire. Nothing ever comes of it. Maybe you think later, you should have shot him. That'll teach him to drive fast. Better than a ticket. You never even register, in the moment, that it was Patton. You were busy worrying about controlling your end of the airfield. But the moment that stays with you, the one time your sturdy emotional wall cracked, the one that asks the hardest question, comes beyond the Rhine. You've crossed the river on a truck, over a bridge already established, and pushed into the vineyards. Picture climbing a steep, semi-shale hillside where the loose stones slide out from under your feet, while the enemy fires down on you, and when you hit the ground, you land on sharp shale. And the vines grow in solid rows you have to cut your way through with no clear field of fire. A pain in every sense. You get over the first hill, with mortars and howitzers clearing the men behind it. Moving fast now beyond the Rhine, your squad comes under fire from a little brick storehouse, alone in the middle of a field. By now, you're grizzled veterans, so you lay down machine gun fire and the shooting stops. There's nowhere for them to go. You holler at them to surrender, and a childish voice hollers back that they will never surrender. And you realize, this is the Hitler Youth. Not even 17, 13, 14 years old. Boys, with weapons that can kill you just as dead as any grown soldiers. One of the men says he'll cover you. Use white phosphorus. You know what that means. A white phosphorus grenade burns anything it touches, and the storehouse is full of grain. Throw a couple in, keep your heads down, and you kill everyone inside. You can see the grain through the openings. You have the means right there in your hand. What do? They won't surrender. They're shooting at you. They're also children. You have a discussion, your squad in the middle of a war, debating the lives of a handful of boys. And the final answer is this. You put about 30 rounds through the door, and you move on. You could have killed them all. You didn't. A momentary aberration, you'll call it, almost embarrassed by your own mercy. But it doesn't last, because shortly after, you run into the camps. The inmates are dying. You can see it in their bodies. In one camp, there's a short firefight, and by the time you reach it 10 minutes later, the guards are dead. Killed by you, by us, you'll say. It was, you'll manage. Interesting. That's the only word you can find, and you know it isn't the right one. You'd grow up hearing Hitler's speeches on the radio, understanding the German, knowing none of it was good. But it had all been secondhand, abstract. A bad thing happening far away. The way you might say it's a bad thing if someone destroys a building you know. And then you saw the camps, and it changes things. You don't reach for the word personal, because you'd already been killing men for months. How would you measure it against that? What you say instead is that you became more vicious. After the camps, unless a German had no weapon on him, you shot him. And you understand, looking back, the terrible symmetry of timing. If you had seen the camps before you'd run into those boys in the storehouse, you might have simply let them burn. The accident of the calendar is the only reason some of them might be walking around Germany today. Who knows? In Luxembourg, something happens that has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with home. You come up to company headquarters one day and you see a half-track parked there, and its weapons are carefully covered with condoms to keep the water out, a standard trick, but nobody in your filthy, exhausted outfit would ever bother. It's the 4th Division, and you look at that immaculate vehicle and you say out loud, "That's my brother. He's the only guy who would do that in a combat zone." You walk in and sure enough, there's Alti. Your brother is 4 years older. He went through Rutgers ROTC and earned his lieutenant's bars. He doesn't wear glasses, you do. So when he'd walked into your company headquarters and addressed the first sergeant, a man named Sager, who was neither nice nor honest, Sager looked up, saw the bars, said, "Yes, sir," and got thoroughly confused because the lieutenant in front of him looked like Silverman, but didn't wear glasses. "Where's my brother?" Alti asked. "He's out on patrol. He'll be back." And so you come back from patrol and find him there. You spend the night together in a potato farmer's basement, which turns out to be lucky because the Germans throw artillery the next day and wreck Alti's polished, spotless half-track. Alti's neat. He was even shaved. You are, by contrast, filthy. And it doesn't bother you in the least. Who were you going to offend? Alti heads up a reconnaissance platoon. Later in the war, he'll step on a mine. But that one night, 2 brothers from a Perth Amboy shoe store family in a potato cellar in Luxembourg. That is one of the pleasanter things you carry. There were never chaplains where you were. You never saw them. They'd be back at regimental headquarters somewhere, and you were rarely more than 100 yards from the front line. Even in so-called reserve for your outfit meant maybe 600 yards. If you were lucky, and you were still in combat. Weapon clean, eyes open, awake. Back at Fort Jackson, though, you and your best friend Bernie Rooney had worked out a beautiful arrangement. Bernie was Catholic, so on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Bernie would go to the Jewish services with you. And on the Catholic holy days, you'd go with him. Any holiday, every holiday, was a day off, and you took them all. The first sergeant would get a funny look on his face when the Catholic boy announced he was off to the synagogue, and the Jewish boy was bound for Mass. As you listen to yourself tell this story, you'll catch something that troubles you. It almost sounds like a fun kind of camp. You don't mean it that way. What you'll come to understand, decades later, when your doctorate is in psychology, is that you were building a wall, a mental wall, and the wall kept everything out but a short list of rules. Don't get yourself killed, see an enemy, kill him, eat everything you can, because you never know when the next meal comes. Which is why, when you lost men, you hold off reporting them to the first sergeant for a couple of days, because rations kept coming up for the dead, and you'd eat them. Keep moving, never go anywhere alone. Stay surrounded by men you know, and if you can't be surrounded, then 2 or 3 at least. And dig as deep as you can every single night. The wall is why you can't talk about it at all. It was not a pleasant experience. But the wall kept the worst of it on the far side, where it couldn't reach you. while you needed to survive. By the 5th of May, you're sick. The men around you have noticed before you'll admit it. You're becoming a menace, they tell you. You're not up there with us. You're slow. What the hell is happening to you? And you say you don't feel good. Finally, after 3 or 4 days, they send you back to the battalion aid station for an aspirin. You don't know the war is about to end. A captain examines you and says you have 2 choices. Stay a couple of days and go back to your outfit, or go back immediately. You figure you'll stay a couple of days. He writes up a ticket and hangs it on your chest and tells you to sit over there. 10 minutes later, orderlies look at the tag, tell you to lie down on a stretcher, and the next thing you know, you're in an ambulance driving away from the fire, and you love it. It pulls you up at an airport. The doors open. 2 prisoners of war grab your stretcher and carry you onto an airplane. Loaded in among genuinely wounded men. There's something wrong with this picture, you keep thinking. It's the first time you've ever been in a plane, DC-3, flying so low, maybe 150 yards up, that it tilts its wings to miss a church steeple as you pass over a town. There's a red cross painted on it, and a nurse aboard, and you tell her there's been a mistake. She looks at your tag and says, "Lie down, soldier." She's an officer. You lie down. You have hepatitis. Your eyes have gone yellow. There's nothing they can do for it except give you rest, good food, and a little exercise. So they put you in a hospital at Bar-le-Duc, France, surrounded by the badly wounded. And that very night, all hell breaks loose, firing everywhere. The whole ward hits the deck. Men claw at the concrete floor with their fingers trying to dig a hole. Tracers stream across the sky. Ammunition cooks off for the better part of an hour. And then you find out what happened. The war is over. Every back echelon man who never once got to fire his weapon is firing it now, into the air, in celebration. The war ended, you think, and now I'm in a hospital, and the war is over. 6 weeks at Bar-le-Duc, and to say it honestly, it was wonderful. A bathrobe and slippers, ping pong, the radio, stars and stripes, and a special high-protein diet that means while everyone else eats Spam, you get steak. Steak every day for a kid who is still growing. They check your eyes each week to see if they're still yellow, and after 6 weeks, they tell you you're all right. Then comes the psychiatrist, because you're a combat veteran and they sort you into categories. He asks you how you feel about combat. Come on. And you give some non sequitur answer you can't even remember. What you do remember is drumming your fingers on the table, and the doctor saying, "You're nervous." "Yes, sir." That made you a Category 4, which meant you didn't have to go back and rejoin the 347th Infantry. Instead, they sent you to the motor pool in Reims, and you liked that. You always loved cars. And so your war ends. Not with a charge, not with a flag, but with a yellow-eyed kid in a bathrobe eating steak, while soldiers fire their rifles at the sky. You think a lot afterward about why D-Day succeeded and why 20 years later Vietnam would fail. The Germans, you'll insist, had better equipment than you did almost every time. Their tanks could shoot the daylights out of yours. Their automatic weapons, that Schmeisser machine pistol, were wonderful. All you had were BARs left over from the last war, though the M1 was a good, reliable weapon. With superior equipment and superior forces, the Germans should have won even when you concentrated against them. The only reason you won, you'll say, was that there were a lot of you, and you didn't do the smart thing, which was to run away. And you could have run, you knew it. Lost and alone in the woods for days at a time, you had every excuse in the world. But you'd find a tank destroyer outfit, or someone would point and say, "Go in the front," and you'd say, "Okay, I go." And you would, because what would you do otherwise? Tell yourself that the man beside you took off, so you might as well too? The reason D-Day worked, the reason any of it worked, was that the GI next to you decided the guy beside him mattered, and just kept going. 10 yards ahead, and then 10 more, and then 10 more. That's what your war was. Not the colonel you never saw, the general you never met, the stars and stripes telling you that you were winning when you had no way of knowing it from the bottom of a frozen hole. When things got truly bad, you'll say, nobody knew what was going on. Nobody. And then it came down to the individual soldier and the man beside him, 10 yards at a time. You understand something else too. Looking back through everything you'd later learn about how people work, the whole function of those 13 weeks of training was to undo 17 or 18 years of your mother telling you to be nice, to be kind, to never hurt anybody, and to replace it in 3 months with, when you hear the word, you will shoot and kill a man who wears different clothes than you, and you will not think about it. When you're 18, that isn't even hard. When you're older, with a lifetime, years of lived data behind you, you can never do it so easily. That, you'll say, is exactly why armies use the young. A unit of 170 men, down to 20 in the Bulge, down to 7 by the 5th of May. That, Melvin Silverman will say, was the whole war. His whole war, anyway. A very small, very dangerous operation seen from the bottom of one foxhole after another. He brought home a Luger he took off a Wehrmacht captain, a man who climbed out of his Volkswagen waving a pistol he should have kept holstered, and made himself the easy target Silverman picked from among a dozen. A buddy smuggled it to him in New York in a brown paper bag a year after the war, because you couldn't have guns in New York. Silverman would never use it. He brought home a camera and yellow eyes, and a flesh wound the army never recorded, and a Bronze Star that wouldn't catch up to him for decades. He never got the Purple Heart he earned face down in the mud of the Saar. But the deeper thing he carried wasn't an object. His second wife would call him a survivor, and he came to believe that the only honest reason to look back was to say, I don't want to do that again, or simply, I did it. What happens to a person becomes part of his data bank, you decided, and you can't relive it. Because the variable that changes everything is time. You'll never again be the boy you were in that field. He went back in 1965 to the military cemetery in Luxembourg and walked the rows and found Delmer Johnson. 1 hour of warmth had stood between them. He carried Sergeant McCarter, the one good NCO, killed in the mud of the Saar. He carried Prince of Valley, who took 3 hours to die when no one could reach him. He carried Bernie Rooney, who went with him to both the Jewish and the Catholic services and was wounded in that first terrible meeting with the tanks. He carried the boys in the storehouse he chose not to burn, and the camps that made him wish, afterward, that he'd never had the choice. What does it mean to be told your whole childhood to be gentle, and then to be remade, in 13 weeks, into someone that could do what the war required, and then to spend the rest of a long life with a wall in your own head, built carefully enough to let you keep living? What does it cost a 17-year-old to lie in a shell hole for 6 hours with the dead around him, and then sit up alive in the mud, blind, and stumble back toward the only world he had left, the men beside him? Melvin Silverman survived. He came home, finished his education, married, raised sons, earned his doctorate, built a life as far from the snow of the Bulge as a man can get. The war didn't become the center of his daily existence. He didn't go to bars to talk about it. He didn't join the organizations. For decades, he barely spoke of it at all, but it remained the line that divided his life. Everything before, everything after. This is the truest tribute we can offer to Melvin and to the men of Company F, the boys who drank milk instead of coffee and earned their expert infantryman badges and went into the woods of the Saar, 170 strong, to remember, not the maps, not the generals, not the headlines that told them they were winning, to remember the cold and the hour of warmth that cost a dozen lives, and the brother with the polished half-track, and the man who said, "You're alive," and meant he'd be ready to die to avenge you. To remember that the war was won 10 yards at a time, by a kid who could have run and didn't, because the guy next to him mattered. This has been the story of Melvin Silverman, one soldier among millions. May we never forget. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review or rating. It actually makes a huge difference in helping people find these stories and only takes a few seconds. This story can be shared thanks to a partnership with the Rutgers University Oral History Archives. If you've got a story you'd like their help in sharing, visit oralhistory.rutgers.edu. That's oralhistory.rutgers.edu. Visit povworldwar2.com for podcast updates and more. That's povww2.com. I'm Fernando Prieto. Thanks again for listening.